There's a moment in every awakening journey where you feel like you're dying because part of you is. If you're watching this right now, chances are you've felt it. That strange sensation where everything familiar suddenly feels foreign. Where your own life looks like someone else's movie. Where you wake up and for a split second, you don't remember who you're supposed to be anymore. This isn't a mental breakdown. This isn't depression. This is the threshold, and you're standing right on the edge of the most profound transformation a human consciousness can experience. Let me tell you what nobody else will tell you about this stage. The spiritual community loves to talk about awakening like it's this beautiful, peaceful journey toward enlightenment. They show you the meditation cushions, the gratitude journals, the manifestation boards. But they go quiet when you reach this point. They don't tell you about the terror. They don't tell you about the nights where you question your sanity. They don't tell you that right before you break through to the final stage of quantum awakening. You're going to feel more lost, more alone, and more broken than you've ever felt in your entire life. This is the threshold, the point of no return. And here's the truth that might make your stomach drop. You can't go back. You already know too much. You've already seen behind the curtain. You've already felt the cracks in the reality you used to call solid. The old version of you, the one who fit into the world without questioning everything, who could sleepwalk through life on autopilot, that person is dying. And some part of you knows this, which is why you're here, searching for confirmation that you're not losing your mind. So let's talk about what this threshold actually is. It's the space between two versions of reality. On one side is everything you've known, your identity, your beliefs about how life works, your relationships, your goals, your entire operating system as a human being. On the other side is something you can feel but can't quite see yet. A different frequency, a different way of existing. But to get there, everything on this side has to collapse first. And your consciousness knows this, even if your mind is fighting it with everything it has. The signs are unmistakable once you know what to look for. Reality starts feeling thin, like a veil you could almost poke your finger through. Synchronicities aren't cute coincidences anymore. They're aggressive, in your face, impossible to ignore. You see repeating numbers everywhere. You think of someone, and they text you seconds later. You dream of events that happen the next day. Time itself feels broken. Hours pass like minutes, or minutes stretch into hours. You'll look at a clock and swear it's been 30 minutes, but only 3 have passed. Or you'll lose entire chunks of time without explanation. And then there's the isolation. This is perhaps the hardest part. You start pulling away from people without even meaning to. Conversations that used to engage you now feel empty, hollow, like everyone is reciting lines from a script they don't even know they're reading. You can't relate to the things people worry about anymore. Their concerns feel small, but you're not judging them. You're just operating on a completely different wavelength now. You try to explain what you're experiencing, and you watch their eyes glaze over. They don't get it. They can't get it. Not because they're less than you, but because they're not standing where you're standing. They're not at the threshold, so you stop talking about it. You retreat inward. You spend more time alone. Not because you hate people, but because being around others who are still asleep feels like wearing clothes that are 3 sizes too small. Everything pinches. Everything restricts. You need space. You need silence. You need to be alone with whatever is happening to you because it's too big, too strange, too overwhelming to process while pretending to be normal. Here's what's actually happening at this stage and why it feels like death. Your entire energetic system is preparing for a massive upgrade. Think of it like this. You're a computer running on an old operating system, and a new one is trying to install itself. But the new system is so advanced, so different from the old one, that everything familiar has to be wiped first. Your beliefs, your identity, your attachment to outcomes, your need for control, your relationships, your career, your goals, all of it is code from the old system. And the threshold is where that code gets deleted. This is why most people turn back at exactly this point. The fear becomes too much. The uncertainty becomes unbearable. They can't stand feeling this lost, this unmoored, this stripped of everything that gave them a sense of self. So they grab onto something, anything, from the old world. They force themselves back into relationships that no longer fit. They double down on careers that feel meaningless. They numb themselves with distractions, addictions, or they jump into new spiritual practices that promise quick fixes and instant enlightenment. They tell themselves maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were just going through a phase. Maybe they need to be more grounded, more practical, more normal. And you know what happens when they retreat? Relief at first. The pressure releases. The terror stops. They feel like themselves again. But underneath, something has fundamentally changed. They know, they've seen, and that knowing never goes away. It becomes a quiet ache, a persistent whisper that they've abandoned something important, something true. They've turned away from their own evolution. But if you're watching this, you're already past the point where retreat is comfortable. You've tried going back. You've tried pretending. You've tried fitting into your old life, and it doesn't work anymore. The clothes don't fit. The script doesn't make sense. The world you used to know feels like a stage set, and you can see the cardboard edges now. Something is calling you forward, pulling you toward the threshold. And even though every cell in your body might be screaming in fear, you know you have to cross it. Because staying here, in this in-between space, is slowly suffocating you. This is the point of no return. You're about to break through to the final stage of quantum awakening. And everything is about to change. Everything you used to anchor your identity to, your relationships, your beliefs, your goals, suddenly feels like it's dissolving. This isn't depression. This is dismantling. And if you don't understand what's happening, it will feel like your entire world is falling apart. But here's the truth. It's not falling apart. It's falling away. There's a massive difference. At this stage of quantum awakening, your consciousness has reached a frequency where the old structures simply cannot hold anymore. Think about what's been happening in your life recently. Jobs that felt stable suddenly become unbearable. Relationships that seemed solid start crumbling for no logical reason. Interests and passions that drove you for years suddenly lose all meaning. You look at your vision board, your goals, your carefully planned future, and you feel absolutely nothing. It's like someone reached into your chest and turned off the switch that made you care about any of it. This is where it gets dangerous. Because your ego knows it's dying and it's going to fight back with everything it has. The ego's job is survival, and right now it's sensing the end. So it deploys its most sophisticated defense mechanisms, and you need to recognize them, or they'll trap you in a spiritual loop that can last years. The first one is spiritual bypassing. This is where you suddenly become obsessed with being positive, with good vibes only, with pretending you're already enlightened. You start saying things like, everything happens for a reason, and it's all love and light. But underneath, you're terrified, and you're using spirituality as a blanket to hide under. The second trap is false completion. This is when your ego convinces you that you've already awakened, that you've already done the work, that you're already there. You might have had a powerful experience, a Kundalini activation, a deep meditation, a moment of unity consciousness, and your ego grabs onto that experience and says, "See, we're done now, we're awakened. We can stop this uncomfortable process." But true awakening at this level isn't a single event. It's a complete dismantling and reconstruction, and your ego knows that if you keep going, it won't survive in its current form. The third trap is the most subtle. It's when you become addicted to the seeking itself. You jump from teacher to teacher, modality to modality, always looking for the next technique, the next activation, the next initiation that will finally give you the breakthrough. But you're using the search as a way to avoid the actual crossing. Because as long as you're seeking, you don't have to face the void that's waiting for you on the other side of all this collapse. Now let's talk about what's happening in your physical body. Because the threshold isn't just psychological or spiritual, it's biological. Your nervous system is rewiring itself to handle higher frequencies of energy. This manifests as intense physical symptoms that doctors can't explain. Sudden rushes of energy that shoot up your spine. Pressure in your head, especially in your forehead and crown. Your body temperature fluctuating wildly. Sleep patterns completely destroyed. Either you can't sleep at all, or you're sleeping 12 hours and still exhausted. You might experience heart palpitations, digestive issues, strange aches and pains that move around your body. This isn't illness. This is your energetic circuitry, upgrading to handle the voltage of your new consciousness. And then there are the reality glitches. You're starting to experience things that shouldn't be possible according to the laws of physics as you've understood them. Objects appearing or disappearing. Hearing your name called when nobody's there. Seeing movement in your peripheral vision. Experiencing alternate timelines. Having clear memories of events that other people remember differently or that, according to this timeline, never happened at all. You're catching glimpses of the quantum nature of reality, where multiple possibilities exist simultaneously, and your consciousness is beginning to navigate between them. This is also when your old life becomes completely intolerable. That job you've been tolerating, suddenly you can't force yourself to show up anymore. That relationship you've been trying to fix, the effort required to maintain it feels like pushing a boulder uphill. Those friends you've had for years, being around them drains you so completely that you need days to recover. And here's what nobody tells you: this isn't you being weak or negative or giving up. This is your system rejecting anything that operates at the old frequency because you're preparing to stabilize at a new one. People will judge you for this. They'll say you're running away, that you're being irresponsible, that you're having some kind of crisis. Let them. They're watching a caterpillar dissolve into liquid inside a cocoon and telling it to pull itself together and go back to being a caterpillar. They don't understand that dissolution is required for transformation. They don't understand that you're not falling apart. You're falling into place. There's a concept you need to understand here called the dark night of the soul versus the threshold crossing, because people confuse them and it matters. The dark night is when your old beliefs about spirituality die. The threshold is when your entire identity dies. The dark night shakes your faith. The threshold dissolves yourself. The dark night is painful, but there's still a you experiencing the pain. The threshold is where even that you begins to dissolve, and you start having moments where you can't remember who you're supposed to be anymore. This collapse of reference points serves a very specific purpose. Your consciousness has been operating within a rigid framework. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how reality works. This is my story. That framework is like a cage, and it's kept your awareness contained within a very limited bandwidth of possibility. What's happening now is that cage is being dismantled bar by bar. Every belief that falls away, every relationship that ends, every goal that loses meaning, that's another bar removed. And yes, it's terrifying, because without that cage, you have no idea what you are or what you're capable of. But here's what's on the other side of this collapse. Freedom. Not the fake freedom of doing whatever you want. The real freedom of being what you actually are, which is consciousness itself, temporarily focused into human form. You're being stripped down to your essence. Everything false is being burned away. Everything that was borrowed, inherited, conditioned, programmed, it's all dissolving. And what remains is the truth of you. This collapse isn't random chaos. It's intelligent destruction, preparing you for reconstruction. Every structure that's falling away is making space for something new to emerge. But you can't skip this part. You can't bypass the dismantling. You have to let it happen. You have to stop trying to hold on to the old reference points and allow yourself to free fall into the unknown. Because the void you're afraid of, that's where the real magic lives. You're in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. This is where most spiritual teachings go silent. But this is where the real work happens. This is the void, the gap, the liminal space that exists between two states of being. And if you're in it right now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like being suspended in nothingness. No forward momentum, no clarity, no sense of purpose or direction. Just floating in an empty space where nothing makes sense anymore. The void is the most misunderstood stage of quantum awakening because it looks like stagnation from the outside. People in your life think you're depressed or lost or wasting time. They want you to make decisions, take action, get your life together. But you can't. Not because you're weak or lazy, but because you're in a state of energetic recalibration that requires stillness. Moving too quickly right now, making decisions from this space. Trying to build a new life before the old one has fully composted. That's how people end up recreating the same patterns with different packaging. Here's what's actually happening in the void. Your entire energetic signature is shifting. Every cell in your body is adjusting to a new frequency. Your consciousness is expanding beyond the limitations of your previous operating system. And that expansion requires time and space to integrate. Think of it like this. You've been living your whole life tuned to one radio station, and now you're being tuned to an entirely different frequency. But during the tuning process, there's that space where you hear static, where you can't quite pick up either station clearly. That's the void. You're between frequencies. This is why you can't go back to your old environments, your old relationships, your old life anymore. It's not that those things are bad or wrong. It's that they vibrate at a frequency you've moved beyond, and being in that frequency field now feels like wearing sandpaper clothes. Your energy field has become incredibly sensitive because it's reorganizing itself. You can feel the density of lower vibrations in a way you couldn't before. Walking into a crowded mall feels overwhelming. Watching the news feels toxic. Being around people who complain constantly feels like it's physically draining your life force. Because it is. This is quantum coherence happening in real time. Your energy field is aligning itself into a new pattern of organization. Every thought, every emotion, every experience you have is either supporting this new coherence or disrupting it. This is why you're drawn to silence, to nature, to solitude. These environments don't disrupt your field. They allow the reorganization to continue. Your system knows what it needs, even if your mind doesn't understand it yet. The loneliness at this stage is profound, and it needs to be acknowledged. You're disconnecting from the collective consciousness of humanity as you've known it, but you haven't yet connected to the new collective at your emerging frequency. You're in the gap. You're alone in a way that has nothing to do with physical isolation and everything to do with frequency isolation. You can be in a room full of people and feel completely alone because nobody is resonating at your bandwidth. Nobody understands what you're experiencing. And the worst part is, you can't even fully explain it because the experience is beyond language. But this loneliness is temporary. It's necessary, but it's not permanent. What's happening is that you're shedding connections that were based on old versions of you, old frequencies, old agreements. And yes, that includes people you love. That includes family. That includes friends you've had since childhood. This isn't about them being bad people. This is about frequency compatibility. And sometimes love isn't enough to bridge a frequency gap. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow the connection to naturally dissolve rather than forcing it to continue in a form that no longer serves anyone. The void is also where your concept of identity undergoes its deepest crisis. You're not who you used to be, but you're not yet who you're becoming. So who are you right now? This is the question that haunts you in the void. All the labels you use to define yourself, your career, your relationships, your roles, your achievements, none of them fit anymore. You look in the mirror and sometimes you don't even recognize your own face. Your likes and dislikes have changed. Your values have shifted. Your entire personality seems to be in flux. This identity crisis isn't actually a crisis. It's an emergence. The caterpillar doesn't have an identity crisis in the cocoon. It has an identity dissolution, which is required for the butterfly to form. What you're experiencing is the same process. Your old identity was constructed, built from experiences and conditioning and adaptations. Your new identity is going to be something different, It's going to be more aligned with your essence, less constructed, more authentic. But to get there, the constructed self has to completely dissolve first. Here's what you need to know about navigating the void. First, stop trying to make it end faster. The void has its own timing, and it will not be rushed. The more you resist it, the longer you stay in it. The more you try to force clarity or direction before it's ready to emerge, the more you delay your own process. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is acknowledging that something larger than your conscious mind is orchestrating this transformation, and your job is to allow it rather than control it. Second, protect your energy field like your life depends on it, because in a very real way it does. This is not the time for people-pleasing or forcing yourself into social situations that drain you. This is not the time for doom-scrolling or consuming negative content. This is not the time for taking on other people's emotions or problems. You're in a delicate state of recalibration, and your field needs to be guarded. Say no without guilt. Choose solitude without apology. Prioritize your energy above all else. Third, trust the process even when you can't see where it's going. The void feels empty, but it's not. It's full of potential, full of possibility, full of the new consciousness that's forming within you. Seeds germinate in darkness. Transformation happens in the unseen. Just because you can't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Your job right now is to be the cocoon, to provide the safe, still space where metamorphosis can occur. And finally, understand that while you're in this void, something extraordinary is being assembled inside you. Your consciousness is reorganizing at a level that will fundamentally change how you experience reality. Your perceptions are expanding. Your abilities are developing. Your awareness is becoming multidimensional. You can't see it yet because you're still in the process, but it's happening. Every moment you spend in the void is building the foundation for who you're about to become. Breaking through isn't a flash of light. It's 1,000 tiny deaths followed by 1,000 quiet births. If you've made it this far, if you've survived the threshold and endured the void, you're about to understand what all of that was preparing you for. This is the quantum integration, the stage where everything that's been dismantled starts reorganizing itself into a completely new configuration. And when I say completely new, I mean you're about to experience reality in a way that most humans never will. The breakthrough doesn't announce itself with trumpets and fireworks. It comes quietly, usually in a moment of profound ordinariness. You're washing dishes or walking outside or sitting in silence, and suddenly you realize something fundamental has shifted. The suffering has stopped, not because your circumstances changed, but because your relationship to reality has transformed. You're still aware of problems, of challenges, of difficulties, but they no longer penetrate you the way they used to. There's a space between you and the chaos, and in that space is peace. This is the first sign of quantum integration. Your consciousness has stabilized at a new frequency. The rewiring is complete enough that you're no longer being tossed around by every external circumstance. You've developed what we call quantum coherence. Your energy field is organized, stable, and resilient. You're no longer a leaf blowing in the wind. You've become the mountain that the wind blows past. Now let's talk about what's actually happened to your brain and your energetic system during this process, because the changes are measurable and profound. Your neural pathways have literally rewired themselves. The default mode network in your brain, the network responsible for your sense of self, your ego, your constant mental chatter, has been disrupted and rebuilt. New connections have formed between parts of your brain that weren't communicating before. Your pineal gland has activated more fully. Your heart coherence has increased, meaning your heart and brain are synchronized in ways they weren't before. Energetically, your chakra system has undergone a complete recalibration. The blocks and distortions that were limiting your flow of energy have been cleared. Your Kundalini energy, whether you were conscious of it or not, has risen and integrated. Your light body, the energetic template that underlies your physical form, has upgraded. You're literally operating with a new energetic architecture now. And this is where things get really interesting, because with this new architecture comes new abilities and perceptions. You're going to notice that you just know things you shouldn't be able to know. Someone is thinking about you, and you feel it before they text. You know what someone is about to say before they say it. You walk into a room and instantly feel the emotional residue of a conversation that happened hours ago. This isn't imagination. This is your expanded awareness picking up information that was always there, but you couldn't perceive before. Your relationship with time is different now. Linear time still exists as a framework, but you're aware of something beyond it. You experience moments where past, present, and future seem to exist simultaneously. You have precognitive dreams that are no longer surprising. You experience déjà vu so frequently it becomes normal. You're catching glimpses of the quantum nature of time, where all possibilities exist in the eternal now, and your consciousness is learning to navigate between different probability streams. You're also becoming aware of multiple dimensions of reality overlapping. You can see the density of the three-dimensional world, while simultaneously being aware of higher dimensional frequencies. It's like developing bifocal vision for consciousness. You can function in the material world, pay your bills, have conversations, meet your responsibilities, but you're simultaneously aware of the energetic dynamics underneath everything. You see the fear driving people's actions. You sense the collective patterns playing out through individuals. You perceive the illusion while participating in it. This multidimensional awareness comes with a particular kind of loneliness that's different from the void. In the void, you felt alone because you were disconnected from everything. Now you feel alone because you can see through everything. You watch people arguing about politics, and you see the deeper pattern of consciousness fragmentation playing out. You watch people chasing success, and you see the ego trying to fill a void it doesn't understand. You watch the whole game of human life, and you can't unsee what you're seeing. But here's the paradox. You're also more compassionate than you've ever been, because you see that everyone is exactly where they need to be in their own journey. You understand that the people still asleep aren't wrong or less than. They're just at a different frequency of experience. You remember what it was like to be where they are. You have deep compassion for the suffering that comes from not knowing what you now know. You want to help, to wake people up, to share what you've discovered. But you also understand that consciousness evolution can't be forced. This brings us to the responsibility that comes with elevated consciousness. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unsee what you're seeing. You can't go back to unconscious living, to sleepwalking through life on autopilot. With expanded awareness comes expanded responsibility. Not responsibility to save anyone or fix the world, but responsibility to live in alignment with your new frequency, to be impeccable with your energy, to choose consciously in every moment, to be the change rather than just talking about it. You're going to be tested on this constantly. Old patterns will try to reassert themselves. Your ego, in its new, more subtle form, will try to take credit for your awakening. You'll be tempted to judge others for not being where you are. You'll want to bypass your human emotions by spiritualizing them away. You'll be offered opportunities to use your new abilities for manipulation or control. Every single one of these is a test of your integration. True quantum integration means you can hold the paradox of being both human and divine simultaneously. You honor your humanness, your emotions, your needs, your vulnerabilities, while also recognizing your true nature as consciousness itself. You don't transcend the human experience. You include it within a larger context of awareness. This is the integration that so many seekers miss. They try to skip past the human and go straight to the transcendent, but that creates fragmentation, not wholeness. The abilities you've developed aren't meant to make you special or separate you from others. They're meant to serve your unique purpose in the collective awakening. Some people will use their heightened intuition for healing work. Others will use their ability to perceive energy for teaching. Others will simply use these gifts to live more consciously, to make better choices, to be more present with their loved ones. There's no hierarchy here. Your purpose with these abilities is whatever serves the highest good in your particular life. What you've gone through, this entire journey to this point, has been an initiation. You've died to who you were and been reborn as something new. You've crossed the threshold that most humans never even approach. You've integrated frequencies of consciousness that fundamentally alter how you experience being alive. And while the journey continues, while there are always new levels of expansion available, you've reached a milestone that deserves to be acknowledged. You've broken through. You didn't just cross the threshold for yourself. You became a doorway for others. This is the final piece that most people don't understand about quantum awakening. This journey was never just about your personal evolution. Every time a human consciousness breaks through to this level of awareness, it creates a ripple in the collective field that makes it easier for others to do the same. You are now what's called a threshold keeper, whether you chose this role consciously or not. Let me explain what this means. The morphic field of human consciousness contains all the patterns, all the pathways, all the possibilities of human experience. When you successfully navigate a new pathway, when you break through to a new level of consciousness, you establish that pathway in the field. You make it real. You prove it's possible, and that pathway now exists for others to follow. This is why awakening is accelerating exponentially on the planet right now. Each person who breaks through makes it easier for the next person, and the next, and the next. But being a threshold keeper isn't a passive role. It's not about sitting on a mountain dispensing wisdom to seekers who climb up to find you. It's about living your new frequency so consistently, so authentically, that you become a vibrational beacon. People who are ready for their own awakening will feel drawn to you without understanding why. You won't need to advertise or convince or prove anything. Your energy field itself will call to those whose consciousness is approaching the threshold. This is where many people get confused about their purpose after breakthrough. They think they need to become a teacher or a healer or start a spiritual business. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Your role as a threshold keeper might look completely ordinary from the outside. You might be a parent raising conscious children. You might be working a regular job, but holding a frequency of peace in a chaotic workplace. You might be creating art that carries a transmission beyond the visible content. There's no single template for how this looks. What matters is that you ground your quantum awareness in everyday life without losing the magic. This is the art of integration, bringing the infinite into the finite, bringing the transcendent into the mundane. You pay your bills with presence. You have difficult conversations with consciousness. You experience challenges without losing your center. You participate fully in human life while remaining anchored in the awareness of what you truly are. This grounding process requires you to build a life that actually reflects your new frequency. This is where most people struggle post-breakthrough because they try to force their expanded consciousness into an old life structure that doesn't fit anymore. It's like trying to live in a house you outgrew, but you stay anyway because moving feels too hard. The result is constant friction, constant discomfort, constant compromise of your energy. You need to get ruthless about alignment now. That relationship that's still not resonating, you need to address it honestly, even if it means letting go. That work situation that drains you, you need to find an exit strategy, even if it takes time. Those habits and patterns that belong to the old you need to release them consciously. Your external life needs to match your internal frequency, or you'll spend all your energy managing the dissonance between them. This doesn't mean everything has to be perfect, or that you're only surrounded by awakened people. It means that wherever you are, whoever you're with, whatever you're doing, you're there by conscious choice rather than unconscious default. You're choosing your life now instead of sleepwalking through it. And when something no longer aligns, you have the awareness and the courage to change it. Let's talk about relationships specifically, because this is where threshold keepers face their biggest challenges. The relationships that survive your awakening journey are rare and precious. Most connections fall away because they were based on old versions of you, old frequencies, old agreements. The relationships that remain, or the new ones that form at this stage, are different. They're based on essence rather than personality. They're based on frequency resonance rather than shared history or common interests. You're going to find that you can no longer tolerate superficial connection. You can't do small talk the way you used to. You can't engage in drama or gossip. You can't participate in relationships where you have to dim your light or pretend to be less aware than you are. This doesn't make you special or better than anyone else. It just means your tolerance for inauthenticity has dropped to zero. You'd rather be alone than pretend to be someone you're not. But here's the paradox you're living now. You're completely sovereign, more alone in your consciousness than you've ever been, yet you're simultaneously more deeply connected to everything than you thought possible. You feel the interconnectedness of all life. You experience yourself as part of a larger whole. You understand that separation is an illusion, even though you experience it as a human. You're living in two realities at once. The reality of individual consciousness and the reality of unified consciousness. And both are true. This brings us to what might be the most important understanding at this stage. Awakening never truly ends. There is no final destination where you arrive and the journey is complete. What you've experienced is a threshold crossing, a significant evolutionary leap in consciousness, but it's not the end. It's a beginning. You've reached the final stage of one cycle and the first stage of the next. Consciousness expansion is an infinite spiral, and you've simply completed one turn of the spiral. This means you're going to have more thresholds to cross, more deaths and rebirths, more dissolutions and reintegrations. But they'll be different now. You have the tools, the understanding, the awareness to navigate them. You know what's happening when reality starts feeling thin again. You recognize the signs of approaching transformation. You don't panic in the void because you've been there before. Each threshold gets easier not because the process is less intense, but because you trust it more. Your work now is to be consistent, to practice what you know, to embody what you've realized, to live from your new frequency so completely that it becomes your new baseline rather than a peak experience you occasionally touch. This is mastery, not the mastery of controlling reality or manifesting desires or displaying spiritual powers, but the mastery of being consistently aligned with your true nature, regardless of external circumstances. And as you do this, as you live your frequency, you're going to notice something profound. You don't need to preach or convince or wake anyone up. Your energy does that automatically. People will have unexplainable breakthroughs after spending time with you. They'll start questioning their reality without knowing why. They'll feel something shift inside them that they can't name. This is the transmission that happens through frequency, not through words. This is how threshold keepers serve. The world needs you now more than ever. Not you performing or proving or trying to be something. Just you being what you are. Because we're at a critical point in collective human evolution. More people are approaching their own thresholds. More consciousness is waking up. More souls are ready to remember what they truly are. And they need to see that it's possible. They need to encounter people who have crossed the threshold and survived. They need to feel the frequency of integrated awakening so they know what they're reaching for. So this is your initiation into the role you've been preparing for your entire life. You're a threshold keeper now, a frequency holder. A way shower, not because you're special, but because you chose to say yes when everything in you wanted to turn back. You chose to keep going when the journey became unbearable. You chose to surrender when your ego wanted to maintain control. You chose transformation over comfort, truth over illusion, awakening over sleep. The threshold you just broke wasn't a destination. It was an initiation. Welcome to the final stage. Welcome to the beginning. The real work starts now.